the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Hey, check out my new tag team, baby, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, Jimmy, don't forget to tell them about Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast.
Well, you know what, I would, but you already did it.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty Pharaoh, bro.
Monty and the Pharaoh. The Monty and the Pharaoh.
You've got the future Hall of Famers at Rucker, Marty Jannetty, and MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff and we gonna rock it.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
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 And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
With Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, what a run.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Hey, cut music. When you want the best in professional wrestling, Long Island, there's only one place you're going to get it, right here.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Now, that's not just the coolest, and that's not just the best. That, my friends, is just incredible.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Duh. Once I developed the accent, je dois.
Give me
What was that?
I just almost heard it.
Once I developed the accent.
He teased me. Go on. That's not right.
Welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh, seen only here out of Indie Music TV in Ronkonkoma, Long Island. One of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Mr. Nikita Koloff. Nikita, thank you for joining us, sir. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate the invite here into the Big Apple.
So what'd you think of that movie when you first came to New York? Dude, where's my car?
Say that again?
Yeah, sorry.
He's referring to our first introduction, Nikita Koloff meeting Monty and the Pharaoh. We picked up Nikita out of the airport, and of course, in Monty and the Pharaoh fashion, we couldn't find our car. What were your thoughts, Nikita? What was going through your head?
That was great.
We did wander the parking lot
thinks
for
we're
a
idiots.
while
Hey.
until we got some assistance.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you know, blessed are the flexible, for they will not break. And I figured eventually your car's going to turn up somewhere at some point.
Right.
At some time.
How are you handling the world now with COVID, all the politics going on and issues? What are the thoughts of Nikita Koloff?
You know, I just have learned really just to roll with whatever whatever's coming at me from day to day. It was interesting several months because of what I do, travel. Main thing I do, I'm here this weekend with you guys, hanging out, meeting wrestling fans, signing autographs. I'll still, occasionally do that from time to time. I enjoy doing that. I love meeting the fans, hearing their stories. But the main thing I do is ministry. In fact, Lex Luger and I just wrapped up a men's event, what we call Man Camp, and where we facilitate a couple of these a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. And so the shutdown, in a sense, shut me in for really about 5 months, from about March 1st to really about August 1st. And so for someone who travels and my livelihood is speaking and ministering and doing conferences and camps and those sorts of things, it was a pretty interesting time. I wasn't really challenged by it. What I did to take advantage of that is really just, some called it what they call is stay home, isolate, whatever terminology. I didn't call it isolate. I called it incubate. In other words, I spent a lot of time listening to sermons and worship music. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in preparation, knowing I was going to eventually get back on the road again and begin to speak again. So I just took advantage of it to just better prepare myself when those doors of opportunity open back up, and they have. So, yeah. So you'll find if you spend much time around me, you'll find, or many would say, I'm what's called an eternal optimist. So no matter how negative it might get, or no matter how black a cloud you might bring me, I'm going to do my best to somehow, some way, find a silver lining in that black cloud.
You knew we were going to find that car.
I knew.
He knew.
I
This is what I
knew.
learned.
So I don't think things don't typically get me down, and including all this crazy stuff going on around us.
These fans that come to see you, you've been out of wrestling a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
What was the most moving situation you had from wrestler to fan, not on the religious end, just wrestler to fan?
I've had numerous stories that have been shared, certainly over the years, but even recently, within these last 6 months. In fact, what I did was, again, in taking advantage of this downtime, I decided to work on a revision of my last book, Nikita, A Tale of the Ring and Redemption, which is my life story. And so I wrote about 7 or 8 new chapters to bring it up to date. Mm-hmm. But then I got this idea, all these fans, a lot of people sitting home, and so I just posted something out on Twitter and Instagram, social media, and I just said, hey, if you have a story of how my life, some way, whether my wrestling career, maybe I spoke in a school assembly at one time that you were in that assembly, or I spoke in a church service or at a conference or something, send me your story. And I'll just tell you, some pretty amazing stories that came back to me. And what I'm doing with some of those stories is I'm including them in the final chapter of the book. So the book's is my story, right? Mm-hmm. But the last chapter, I think we're just going to call it Your Stories.
That's awesome.
And so I'm including a lot of fan stories.
Cool.
In the final chapter of the book, and just to your question, to show how much I appreciate all the stories I'm hearing, and how I've been fortunate to impact people's lives. And everything from, like your friend, because of you, Nikita, I got into weightlifting. Mm-hmm. Because of you, Nikita, I got into professional wrestling. I mean, I've met numerous young guys that were inspired to get into professional wrestling because of my career. Mm-hmm. Because of you, Nikita, this happened, that happened. So there's a myriad of stories, but I'll pique the curiosity of your viewers by saying, hopefully by the end of the year that revision will be ready to purchase, and then who knows, maybe some of your viewers will see their story in print in the book, and at very least get to see and or read some of the ways my career has impacted other people's lives.
Road Warrior Animal passed away recently. Thoughts on Road Warrior?
Yeah. Like many, I suppose. I mean, very surprising. His wife had reached out to me just about, 10, 12 days prior, I think a couple weeks prior to that, just randomly, and said, hey, Joe's 60th birthday's coming up. I'd like to surprise him. Would you shoot me a video, happy birthday video to him? And, of course, I mean, Joe and I go back to 1978. I think I was sharing with you guys, or some of the guys, that when I went to the funeral service, other than his brother John and his brother Mark, I looked around that room, kind of dawned on me, I've known him longer than anybody else in that room, with the exception of his 2 brothers.
Wow.
And I guess, the number one thing is, it just lends itself for all of us to understand, that mortality is a reality, and there is no promise of tomorrow. We do what we can, or I do what I can to take care of myself, exercise, eat, work out, and do the things I feel I'm within my control to do, but still realizing that there is no promise of tomorrow, and so these sorts of things happen. I posted a magazine cover shot. It was interesting. It was Ivan and I wearing the NWA tag team belts, and Animal and Hawk wearing the AWA tag team belts. And I asked the fans, I go, hey, what do you notice about this magazine cover? And I think only one or two pointed out the fact that I'm the sole survivor of that cover at this point. That the other three have all passed on. So.
Well, we know what Ivan, obviously meant to your career as a wrestler. Can you tell us how much Ivan meant to you as a person?
Yeah, we became. And people ask you. Of course, they still ask. Believe it or not, to this day, is she really your uncle? Or, hey, your brother Ivan, or your cousin? They all kinds of things, right? I'm like, all right, it all works. But was he really your uncle? And I'm like, well, he was in TV land. However, he was as much an uncle to me as any uncle I ever had, because he was instrumental, him and Don Kernodle, and helping teach me the ropes, pun intended, of wrestling, and we became close friends outside the ring, and spent a lot of time together, even really right up to his passing. And his wife, she wanted a very private graveside service, and asked if I would, be essentially the main speaker, which I was certainly honored to do that.
Wow.
And there might have been, I don't know, I think she invited maybe 25 people, not many. So just those who were really close, family, and then friends who were really close. And so it was quite an honor, and again, nothing but just incredible thoughts when I think about Ivan and all that he accomplished, certainly inside the wrestling ring, but even what he did with his life post wrestling.
Did Ivan reach out to you towards the end, maybe to talk about God and maybe get some clarity towards the end? Because I know you preached the word, and
yeah, well, it wasn't towards the end. It was actually so I give my life to Christ 17 October 1993.
Farrell's birthday.
Your birthday.
I have to throw that in.
Your birthday. We share birthdays.
There you go.
And so
there you go.
And then there we go. And then I was in 1995. I got connected with an evangelist out of South Africa, and began to really just be mentored by him, and I felt impressed to call Ivan and invite him. This evangelist was doing revival services in North Carolina, and so I reached out to Ivan. I remember I reached out to him on a Monday, and I knew that the evangelist was going to be there all week, and just invited Ivan. I didn't know he was at the service until the end of the service, when the evangelist gave what somebody knows as an altar call, and there was Ivan standing at the altar,
really,
surrendering his life to Jesus. That was
really?
1995.
Okay.
And it was the real deal. And by that I mean, prior to that, Ivan, by his own admission, and even in books and videos, would admit that he had drug addictions, tobacco addiction. I mean, he was a big chewer. He drank a lot of alcohol, ran around a lot or whatever. But you know what? On that night, kind of like those who are familiar with the Bible, was the Saul in the Bible who had a road to Damascus experience, and had a real life-changing transformation.
Yep.
That was Ivan's story.
So we were talking in the car also about your wrestling career and Ivan, and something that you said in passing through the conversation, we were talking about, God, if you only would have came to the World Wrestling Federation and Ivan could have came with you. But the one thing you said is you didn't think Ivan would have come. Why?
Well, I don't know. It probably falls in line with the same question people ask me or comment on social media and other things as why isn't he in the Hall of Fame for the WWE? I don't know the answer to that. And my guess is whatever happened in the past, and there's got to be something, obviously something that happened that's kept him out of the Hall of Fame,
Something
whatever
with
that
him
reason
and Vince.
is.
Yeah.
That same reason probably would have prevented him from being invited in back up there, back to the WWF.
Did he ever share with you any problems with Vince McMahon Jr.?
No, we never. I mean, we weren't talking about WWF, man. We were talking about NWA and Rock and Roll Express and Road Warriors, and we're looking at what's in front of us, not the competition.
But as a wrestler, and now that there's only really one game in town, I know AEW is coming around and NWA Power is trying to do their thing there. Now wrestlers say New York was the pinnacle. When you got there, that's when you knew you made it. Is that what you felt, or did you not feel that at all?
Didn't feel that at all. I mean, I'd say it was some pretty good competitive days between WWF and NWA, and once we started going head to head, like for example, I mean, I can clearly remember going to Philadelphia. They were at the Spectrum and we were at the Civic Center. We had 10,000 people. They had 10,000 people. Yep. I mean, head to head. We had one opportunity to go to Landover to the Cap Center over a 4th of July, and I want to say 87. I think July of 87. I'm almost positive it was July of 87, and the main event was the Superpowers and the Road Warriors against the Four Horsemen. And everyone was kind of surprised we got in there because Vince had a lock on a lot of the buildings, and so even to get in there, at that point he had to give the building permission for. And the way I understand the story, he didn't think we were going to draw over that holiday or whatever.
So he wanted to embarrass you, probably, right?
Yeah. But we packed that place out with 23,000 people, and
cursing.
They never sat down for that 8-man tag match the whole entire time. I mean, and Dusty and I, as the Superpowers. I mean, anywhere we went for a couple years once we formed the Superpowers, did basically sell out business. Combine that with the Road Warriors. Initially, people did love to hate me.
That's true.
I mean, I had six different matches where fans jumped the barricade and came after me. Attempted to get in the ring after me. A couple of them succeeded. Ivan and I had death threats, at the Jim Crockett office.
Were you the fellow who got clocked with a spark plug in Puerto Rico or something like that, or was that somebody else?
That's me.
You? That's you.
Yeah.
Spark plug in Puerto Rico. Yeah. Great.
It's crazy. I just told that story. Luger and I just finished a man camp. We had a guy from Puerto Rico, and I just told that story of being hit in the arm with a spark plug, cut my arm open. That's how much they love me in Puerto Rico. And so I will say this: I am thankful that I got to experience both sides.
Yeah.
Now the interesting thing is, I'll inject this part of the story. If Magnum TA hadn't had his accident, I get asked, would you have turned babyface? I doubt it. Mm-hmm. I can't say for certain, 100%, but my guess would be probably not.
Right.
Because Magnum was being groomed to be the next Ric Flair. He and I already had incredible chemistry, especially from the best of 7 with the U.S. belt. Mm-hmm. And so most likely him and I would have had several years run back and forth as world champions because we just had that chemistry. So the fact that I end up deciding, or they gave me the choice of teaming with Dusty, I only saw that one as a positive thing to be with somebody as popular as he was, and the fact that he had, creative control of things. And now, did we know? Someone asked him prior to his passing, did he know that was he confident that he know that angle that story would get over so well? And truthfully, he said no. No, none of us really had any idea.
Couldn't imagine.
A Russian becoming a good guy,
Yeah,
right?
no.
Right.
And so
He tried it though.
Yeah, well, and we were pleasantly surprised that
Ballsy.
that the fans, and kind of to that point of, it was the time. If you're going to turn, the time turns when you're the hottest heel. That's the time to turn, right? And so, I think I can think back in the Charlotte Coliseum that night to the fans, the same fans who 30 days before, 1 month before, hated my guts.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm looking around this arena, and they got their shirts off. They're doing the pose. They're
nuts.
sticking their tongues out there. I'm like, okay, I think this might work. Like
Okay.
when I broke in, it was about business for me. I from day one, I'm
Right.
a business guy.
Right.
So I my approach was business mindset. Hence, I hired a business manager. I think one of the very first guys to
Interesting.
ever do that.
Okay.
And one of my best friends, Tim Peltier. So I hired Tim, and I said, "Hey Tim," I said, "Man, everything's coming to you. My checks. Well, I'll give you a little backstory, but my checks. You're going to pay my rent. You're going to pay my electric, my phone. You're going to pay my gas. Any bills I got, they're all coming to you. You're going to take care of everything. I'm going to focus on wrestling and building the story and building my character and all of that." And so started studying the Russian language a little bit to put a few phrases together. Learned to sign my name in Russian. And I thought, if I'm going to get this character over, I'm not going to talk to anybody in the dressing room, outside the dressing room, unless I absolutely have to talk to somebody. In fact, it was Mark Merrill told me a story just a while back when he first came into the NWA territory. The Johnny B. Bad, he was wrestling with us. He goes, "Dude," he's like, "I got to tell you," he goes, "I've never told you this, but when we first came in," he goes, "first of all, half of us were scared to death of you. We're like, that guy could like rip your head off." He goes, "And then you're talking in character in the dressing rooms, and we're like looking at each other, whispering, going, does he know we're like smart to the business? Does he know
I
what?"
thought you were nuts.
In fact, I know you guys had Demolition on.
That's right. Crusher Khrushchev.
Crusher Khrushchev. But before he was Crusher, he was out in Louisiana with Nikolai Volkov.
Uh-huh.
And so when we brought him up to the Carolinas to become Crusher Khrushchev, he's like, "Dude, he goes, "I should have known." He goes, we heard in Louisiana that they had this shoot Russian up in the Carolinas, and we're like, "Oh wow, that's amazing." And I come find out it's you, and I'm like, "Why didn't I know that?" Why? Because I'm just that guy. If I'm going to do something, I'm all in. I'm 100% in, right? I'm not going to do anything half baked. So I'm focused on wrestling, and I think at the time they paid us weekly, I think. And so, I'd get my check, and there was really no urgency. I'm a what my sister would call a very frugal guy. And so, I would spend what I'd need to spend in order to eat and live and that sort of thing. And so I had money in my pocket, so I didn't see any need to cash a check, so I just throw it in my closet shelf. And then at one point, Dave was the guy's name. The CPA came to me at one point, and I don't even know how long it was, but the bottom line was, he says, "Cash your checks." I go, "Dave, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Cash your checks. You're screwing up my accounting, all my bookkeeping and everything." I go, "How am I doing it?" He goes, "Because you haven't cashed your checks. Cash your checks." So, and I don't know. I went I don't know. Maybe I had a year's worth, 2 years worth, 6 months worth.
Wow. I don't need to cash this.
I don't know.
How you do that?
But it was enough. I had enough uncashed
God.
checks to screw up his books. Let's
Right.
just put it that way.
Right.
And then it was fast forward. At that point, I just had everything sent to Tim, and Tim just handled everything.
Were you playing?
And I got an allowance. Once I developed the accent, je dois.
Give me that. What was that? I just almost heard it.
Once I developed the
Oh, he
accent.
teased me. Go on. That's not right. Anyway.
You always leave them hanging, wanting more.
That was just a little whisker hair. Go on. Anyway.
Once I developed the accent.
And by the way, folks, he's been asking for this accent for the
all day. The guy won't give it to me.
He wanted in the car, at the event.
All day. Yeah, would you do the Russian accent? Would you do the right? You make me sound like such a. I was doing
YouTube.
that, folks. Anyway.
YouTube.
Dear God.
Once I developed the accent.
Okay.
Once I actually learned English. Okay. It started speaking. Again, I made the decision that I was going to live it anywhere in public. So anywhere in public would mean
anywhere in public.
Grocery store, it would mean a movie theater, it would mean a restaurant, an airplane. It would mean being pulled over by the cops. In fact,
oh my God, what?
I was telling this story the other day.
What is he doing?
So I screen test for Rocky 4.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's in here somewhere.
That's in
Go
there.
on.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, nice.
So it's Dolph Lundgren and I out on the set with Stallone.
And Kerry Von Erich, yeah?
Yeah, it was between, really, it was between Dolph and Nikita. Kerry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing.
Kerry's first question to me was, "Are there some lines we're supposed to like?" I'm like,
dude, you will lose. Cut. That's terrible.
No, that was like, well, the odds of me getting this role just went up from 33% to 50%.
Right.
Oh yeah,
I think
for
higher.
sure.
Well, yeah, that's true.
50-50
Dolph
now.
was still in the damn room. Yeah,
Kerry,
go on.
Kerry, thank you for not knowing your lines. You increased my odds at this point. Here's the point. With Sylvester Stallone or anyone else on that set, limousine drivers, I never broke character, even for the screen test.
Wow.
I just stayed in Nikita Koloff character for the screen test, including conversations with Stallone.
Oh boy.
Off camera.
Yo, he's nuts. Take Dolph. Thoughts on Jim Crockett?
Yeah, absolutely. I have thoughts on Jim. I'm grateful and thankful to the entire Crockett family for giving me my break. If it wasn't for Jim taking a chance on me, there wouldn't be a Nikita Koloff. And he believed in me. I'm loyal sometimes to a fault.
Okay.
But I'm a loyal guy to people, and so I was loyal to Jim Crockett. I probably could have went to New York and made, who knows, 10 times, 100 times the amount of money. It's not always been about the money for me. My integrity and loyalty is most important, or very important to me. And so I felt I just really felt this loyalty to the NWA, to Jim Crockett for giving me my break, and was willing to forego a bigger paycheck or a bigger payday just to line my own pockets in support of the organization that gave me a chance.